It is my pleasure to welcome you back to another Wednesday night episode of Hometown Huddle. We've got a lot to discuss tonight. We're talking NIL in high school in Ohio. We're talking about Rivalry Week in Ohio, some of the biggest rivalry games that are happening in 2 days in the Ohio Valley. And I was notably not in the state of Ohio over this past weekend. We'll document that. We've got a lot to talk about. That's all coming up. It's October 22nd. It's Hometown Huddle. I'm your host, Drake Watson. It's all coming up after this.
All the way to the house, and it's going to be a St. Clairsville touchdown. First play of the game. Hello, touchdown Huskies. Wide open, touchdown Ohio Valley.
NIL in Ohio in high school. Do we remember what NIL stands for, or do we just associate it with all of these negative things and all of these collectives and the things that it has done to the college game? Name, image, and likeness. You're not 3 years old. I assume you still knew what that meant, but I think it's important to start things off tonight by remembering that NIL on its own is name, image, and likeness. So if I play football for Harrison Central or Indian Creek or Bel Air, and a local pizza shop wants to give me, let's say, $50 for me to appear in a commercial or on a billboard or on the menu to advertise the special that they have on Thursday nights for wings and pizza. That's NIL. That's me profiting off of my name, image, and likeness. What's the story here? The story is in Ohio, you can't do that if you're in high school, if you are an athlete in high school. That's all about to change, and thus far it has changed for a brief period of time, for 45 days. So I'm sure you've read the articles about this, and I'm sure you've read the stories about this. They have dominated the headlines when it comes to the world of high school sports in Ohio. Jameer Brown, I believe a four-star prospect out of Wayne High School in Huber Heights, Ohio. That's the Dayton area. That's notably where Braxton Miller came out of. Jameer Brown's also a commit for Ohio State, the wide receiver. He effectively... It is my understanding that he felt that he missed out on some opportunities to make some cash off of NIL, off of his own name, image, and likeness due to the OHSAA's rule against such profits. So he then sued the OHSAA, and as it stands right now, for 45 days, this will all be revisited around the first week of December. I think it's inevitable anyway, but as of now, for 45 days, the OHSAA can no longer legally enforce that rule against high school athletes profiting off of their name, image, and likeness. Now, I read this one comment. I guess we'll attack this point first. There's so many points I have on this piece of paper. It's difficult to figure out where to start on all of this. But I read a comment that said, I have no idea who put it out there, but just it said, is the money going to come from ticket sales or taxpayers? And my head just sunk. Is that really? Let's set the paper. Is that really what we think? I don't even know if there's an appropriate way to respond to this. None of that whole perception doesn't apply to what NIL is and is supposed to be at its core. Name, image, and likeness. The reason you think things like that is because of what the college game has done to all of our minds. And there are things such as collectives, and there's boosters, and which school has more money to get these players and all of that. That's never, I don't believe that's ever what NIL was supposed to be. I think, and I believe thus far, there has been language that will say there's definitely going to be an attempt, as there should be, to eliminate things such as collectives and things that are not supposed to be what NIL is all about, right? At its core, it is supposed to be there's a pizza shop across the street, and if there's a player down the road, let's say at Harrison Central, who's good enough, then that pizza shop says, hey, here's $50. We want you to be on our billboard, or we want you to appear in a commercial, or we want your picture on the bottom of our menu while we advertise our Thursday night special for wings and pizza, or whatever the case may be. All that's an example. That's NIL. And it is my belief that if that's all it is, I'm perfectly okay with it. One, I've done it. About coming up on 3 years ago. I was a senior in high school, and Belmont College reached out to several folks asking, talking about social media presence and this and that. All they wanted me to do was read some statement, something that they wanted to get out, and they paid me however much they paid me. It wasn't a lot, but they paid me to say something. That's NIL. I happen to not be on a team, so it was legal. First of all, I think in a small town like this, I don't even think they would have caught it. But that was, I mean, what if I was on the baseball team when that happened? That's just why I believe if you are a good enough athlete, whether it be football or softball or volleyball or golf or swimming, we don't have swimming down the road, but any of these sports, if you're a good enough athlete that a business wants to come to you and say, we'll give you some cash if you say this or just simply endorse our company. I don't think inherently there's anything wrong with that. But again, when you start getting into, because I think this is a slippery slope if the OHSAA and others involved don't take the correct steps to make sure that it stays to its core, name, image, and likeness, and you can profit off of those things as a high school athlete. And again, I think they're going to do their best to eliminate the use of collectives and all these other things that we don't like about NIL. Because then you have, I mean, I've heard somebody say already, I'll start a collective and we'll get the best athletes from the Valley because we'll have people, we'll have donors and we will have a pool of cash. Then we can say to an athlete that is perhaps outside of the district, wherever it may be, we could say, hey, we've got more money. Here's another thing that I think is going to be revisited down the road. I think this is going to call into question, and I'm less sure about how this is all going to go down, but I think there will be impacts on the transfer rules in the state of Ohio. Open enrollment, transferring, all of those things I think are going to be impacted by this because although there's no, and I hope there's not, there shouldn't be, the plan is for there not to be, but we don't know yet, but although there's no collectives or anything else or all this dirty stuff that we don't like about NIL, what if there's an athlete in town A that doesn't have a business or doesn't have a big business that's willing to give him however much money that he's looking for or she is looking for? But town B does. Town B has a couple big businesses. They've got some really good pizza shops and coffee shops that really want to put the faces of their local athletes all over the place and give them a lot of money. So what happens when that athlete then wants to transfer from town or let's say District A to District B? Do we still I just think it's inevitable that one, this all happens. I think it's inevitable that we revisit the transfer rules. So that's a lot of jumbled up thoughts and information, but those are my first thoughts. Again, to summarize, I don't have a problem with it if it is NIL at its core, name, image, and likeness. If it's anything more than that, and if it looks anything like the college game, I don't like it, and I don't think many people will like it either. I don't think many people like it, even if it is name, image, and likeness. But let me tell you this. This is the one last thing I'll say on this to any potential detractors. To NIL at its core, not with all the stuff we don't like attached to it, at its core. If you don't like NIL, think about some player who plays football, basketball, and baseball, and find me the time, or find that kid the time to get a job, because maybe that kid needs to provide for some other people in his household or himself or herself. And when do they have time to find a full-time job to really provide for certain things? Or maybe they need to save up to get a car to get to school. All of these things that you can think about. And then imagine they're really good at football, basketball, and baseball, or any combination of three sports. Now they have an opportunity. So you want to take that opportunity away from somebody. Again, I don't think many people would agree with that if it is understood that there are no negative strings attached or no strings attached that have a negative connotation, such as collectives and such as folks transferring to get money, right? I don't think it should always be just about money. I don't think, because I think that's also a slippery slope. This whole thing is a very deep topic and conversation. But again, I have no problem with it if it is name, image, and likeness at its core because of many of the things that I just mentioned. Two, I've done it before. I just happened to not be on a team when I did it, and there was no issue for that. I spent the money on a nice dinner a couple weeks later or whatever. I have no idea what I did with the money, but probably pissed it away somehow. All right, let's talk about actual football. That's what we're here for, right? This time of year, we're here to talk high school football, notably on the Ohio side, because it is Rivalry week in Ohio. We'll get to that in just a minute, but some quick thoughts on some games that we talked about and had our eyes on last week. The game of the week. This result, I don't think was shocking, But I think many in the Valley, just given the success of one team almost perennially and the more recent success of another team, I think the Valley as a whole was rooting for one team and they didn't get what they were rooting for. And the folks just south of me, they're loving it because St. Clairsville got the win over Indian Creek, 28-21. Again, I wasn't rooting for anybody. I had no prediction on the game because I thought it could go either way. It looked like it would be a big win for St. Clairsville early on. I'm watching that game as I'm doing the game down the road. Indian Creek fights back. They tie that thing up at 21 and they go to overtime. And St. Clairsville's able to end up winning in overtime, 28-21. What that means for St. Clairsville is they have secured themselves a playoff spot. Indian Creek's also secured themselves a playoff spot. I think both of them are going to have a home game. But remember, last week we were talking, if St. Clairsville had lost that game, it wasn't going to be so sure that they were in the top 12 when it's all said and done. And they've got Cambridge this week, a game that they should and probably will win. Barnesville, we talked about this game between Barnesville and Independence. Once again, they go down to this big spectacle. It's a neutral site game at Marietta. I wish I could have been there. They're facing yet another good team from West Virginia, not dissimilar to George Washington, and they ended up taking care of business against Wheeling Central. As soon as they stumbled against George Washington, I was like, okay, maybe we circled that Independence game. And for good reason, because Independence gets the win over Barnesville, 42-21. In the long run, I don't think that's going to hurt Barnesville any, but Union Local, obviously, we'll talk about that in just a few moments, but they can look at that film and find some potential weaknesses for Barnesville. That game was tied. I remember looking, that was tied at 21 all at one point, and then Independence just ran away with it, 42-21, the final there. I was down the road at Harrison Central. It was senior night for the Huskies. Edison came to town. That's a good rivalry across many sports. And Harrison Central, they've just got to be disappointed with the fact that they were up. They put up and playing really well. It was 19-13 at some point in the second half, and then one thing went wrong, and then another thing went wrong, and you just before you blink your eyes, and it had slipped away from the Huskies. They fall to Edison 35-19. Credit to Edison for taking that game from Harrison Central. But again, I think much like the Newcomerstown game for Harrison Central, maybe the Malvern game as well. There was another game not too long ago, Indian Creek, I think. There are things for Harrison Central to build off of, even in a loss, and things that they can take with them that will be good for them moving forward. Martins Ferry lost to Wheeling Central 28-20. I talked about this game last week because how big it was for Martins Ferry's playoff chances. They needed a win to control their fate in the postseason. They could not get the win. Wheeling Central played very well, and it's tough to beat a Mike Young coach team. And so now we'll talk about this a little bit later, but Martins Ferry's playoff hopes are very much up in the air, and I believe that's the segment we will close the show with tonight. So that's a quick look at what happened last week in the games that we were looking forward to. Now, what are the games that we're looking forward to this week? None other than the ginormous rivalry games that we have in the Ohio Valley. Let's start in Western Belmont County with the Milk Bucket game between Barnesville and Union Local. Let me display my ignorance and ask, is it the Milk Bucket or the Milk Jug? I've heard both. I've seen both. I don't know. Either way, they're playing for either a Milk Bucket or a Milk Jug out in Belmont County. This one is at Union Local. Both teams are 7-2 heading into this one. Barnesville is number 5 in Region 19. Union Local, number 7 in Region 19. Barnesville leads the series all-time 41-22-3. 3 ties. They've been playing this thing since 1959. The trophy's a little bit newer than that, but the rivalry goes back to the late 50s. Barnesville is on a 7-game winning streak that Union Local is trying to snap. I believe with a win, Barnesville can hold on to a home game in Week 11. If they get enough help elsewhere, there's a small chance that they can secure a top 4 seed, but none of that matters if they're not able to win. And trust me, Union Local is motivated and fired up, and they're doing everything they can to try to win the game as well. They haven't won the game since 2017. This is the first time on this show, and perhaps, especially given what's going to happen on Friday night, or what could happen, this may be the last, but certainly the first time that I will give my picks and predictions. I don't think Barnesville's the wrong pick here. I think the Shamrocks get the win at Union Local. The road team picking up the win in a rivalry game, something that we may end up seeing as a trend as we go through here. All right. I need to give my voice a break. And so it's perfect timing that now we talk about Harrison Central at Buckeye Local for the Vales game. Tomorrow night is a huge evening for Harco Media Network and just a huge day altogether. Why? I Got Your Six with Dirk Harkins premieres on the Harco Media Network. And once I show you this clip, you'll have a little bit of an understanding of what Dirk is going to be talking about. And it was just beautiful how it all tied into this week and this game in particular for Vales. So without further ado, this is a sneak peek, a little look ahead at what Dirk is going to be talking about on his show. I joined him for his first episode. He's got many others that are going to be worth a watch as well. So without further ado, I think I've already said that. Let's cut to Dirk Harkins and what he had to say about the Vales game between Harrison Central and Buckeye Local. Harrison Central has a big game with Buckeye Local. The Vales game. Veterans, What is it? Veterans, athletics,
Legionnaires, education, and sportsmen.
So talk to me. I didn't even realize until I think I was on the phone with you a few weeks ago how instrumental you were in getting that started. So talk to us a little bit about how that came to be, what the mindset was going into that, and what it's turned into, and just the spectacle that it is, not only on the football field. It's a game that I always say is much bigger than between the sidelines. It's a game that is really just got red, white, and blue all over it.
Oh, it does. And it's just the pride within this whole valley when that game comes on and you guys come running out with the flags, 100 flags every year. That's awesome. But I remember, it's got to be 14 years ago, whenever it was, sitting at the Caddis Legion with Ed Hebner, Ed Long, Rick Brown, God rest his soul, and myself over there, drinking a couple beers at the Legion and the cocktail napkin and talking about, we were always doing something in the community. And then they were talking about bringing this rival together between the schools and passing the trophy back and forth. Uh-huh. And I thought, that's a really cool idea, So we sat there that night and talked about it. And then next thing I know, Ed Hebner and Ed Long from Caddis Legion had made several phone calls throughout the valley through Jefferson County Legions and Harrison County and got it rolling.
And Caddis and Adena was a big rivalry back in the day as well. And so to see that kind of, obviously with the consolidations that have happened since then, Harrison Central and Buckeye Local, you've got Adena ties, you've got Caddis ties, and just everything that goes into Harrison County and Jefferson County. And I remember I played in that game twice, and Anthony Hayes, the head coach for Harrison Central, he had to have said it 100 times. When you run out onto the field, you do not let that flag touch the ground.
Yeah.
And when you get to the sideline, you make sure you give it. They always had a guy that was collecting them, and you make sure you give it to him, and you let that thing fly because that's what it's really all about. Do you think how much of the conversation was, let's turn a football game into more of a football game, which in my mind is really what it is, and it's something that, and traditionally it's not too far or not too long before Veterans Day. It's the end of the regular season. It's week 10. And so it just brings so much awareness to veterans and the Legion and everything else.
Yeah, it's just fun to get everything that we do as Legionnaires. Part of our four pillars is the youth in our communities.
Okay.
So that is one of the things that we really get excited about, especially at our post at 525 at Adena. Everything we do, we try to incorporate the youth into it to, get that sense of pride and that sense of anything that we can do to teach them something about the history of what it is, the importance of a veteran, respecting the veteran, respecting the flag, just being proud to be an American.
Yeah. If you like what you heard, more of that to come. And obviously, high school football is nowhere near the only thing we talked about. We talked about many other things, and frankly, all of which more important than high school football. I do want to acknowledge that. But if you liked what you heard and you want to hear more of what Dirk has to say about things other than high school football, then tomorrow night, 6 p.m., you need to tune into Harco Media Network. It'll be on the YouTube, the Facebook, wherever you're seeing this. And obviously, we'll be utilizing the social networks as well, the social media platforms. So, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TikTok, everything that is associated with Hometown Huddle and Harco Media Network is where you can find more of I Got Your Six with Dirk Harkins. Once again, first episode comes out tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time until we switch the clocks in sometime in November. Back to Harrison Central and Buckeye Local. Harrison is 3-6. Buckeye Local is 2-7. Both have been eliminated from the entire playoff conversation, which in an odd way, I think is, I kind of like it that way, because none of these games, and the games that we're talking about, there are playoff implications on the line for both teams, but I'm not somebody that needs. I just cannot help but chuckle at the way that I couldn't spit that out for a second. But I'm not somebody. I said this about, what did I say this about? Indian Creek and St. Clairsville. I don't need playoff implications for these games to be huge, for these games to be a big deal, right? And so when they go out the window for a game like Harrison Central and Buckeye Local, it's almost like taking a weight off your shoulders, and you can kind of, we could just focus on the game between the sidelines, and we can think about just Harrison Central and Buckeye Local. Harrison leads the series 12-5 all time. They've won 12 out of the last 13. They've won 3 in a row. This is a series that dates back to 2008. I think Harrison Central extends their winning streak to 4 in this game, but they're not going to do it easily. Buckeye Local always puts up probably their best effort of the season, comes out against Harrison Central. 4 years ago showed us that pretty evidently. So it's not going to be easy, but I think Harrison Central comes away with the win. Let's head up north now into Jefferson County and talk about big showdown, the Route 43 rivalry between Indian Creek and Edison. Indian Creek is number 5 in Region 15 at 8-1. Edison number 7 at 6-3 in Region 17. Edison is likely in. Indian Creek is certainly in. Here's the big deal for Indian Creek. With a win, they could be anywhere from 2-6 when it's all said and done in the final playoff seedings. With a loss, they could still be anywhere from 4-9. So Indian Creek most likely has a home game, but obviously they're looking to beat Edison for that outside chance that they can get a bye in Week 11. Indian Creek leads the series that dates back to 1993. They lead it 23-9 all time. They won 12 straight from 2009 to 2020. They won last season, but they've lost 3 out of the last 4. Edison had a good streak there in 2021 to 2023. I think Indian Creek turns last year's win into a streak on Friday night, and they get the win over Edison. Certainly a big game that we very much so look forward to. I said we'd talk about Martins Ferry a little bit more, and they have a big game for Sparky, perhaps the most tradition-rich game of them all this weekend. Martins Ferry at Bel Air for Sparky, which stands for sportsmanship, participation, achievement, rivalry, and youth. All of those things, that game, it's just an incredible tradition here in the Ohio Valley. It doesn't get much better when you're talking Ohio high school football than Martins Ferry and Bel Air. And that's before I even tell you that it's such a close series. Bel Air leads the series 59, 55, and 7 all time. That is about as tight as you can get for a game that's been played for over 100 years. This thing goes back to 1905. I may or may not have been negative 100 years old when they first started playing this game. Martins Ferry and Bel Air. First of all, Martins Ferry also is they and Marietta kind of compete for the status as the first settlement in the state of Ohio. We'll leave it at that, but that just shows you they've been playing football a long time in Martins Ferry. Likewise with Bel Air. These two teams have split the last 10 meetings, so not only has it been close historically, but it has been close the last 10 years as well, both teams winning 5 games each. Here's what's big for Martins Ferry. First of all, they are number 13th right now in Region 23 at 5-3. Bel Air is 3-6, so they're out. Bel Air has been eliminated for playoff contention in Region 17. So first of all, for Bel Air, there's nothing to lose. There's nothing on the line other than trying to upset Martins Ferry and kind of ruin the end of their season. And it's in Bel Air's hands if they want to do that. It's Martins Ferry and Bel Air on a Friday night at Bel Air, which is also something special. I believe that may be the first time ever that Sparky will be played for under the lights at Nelson Field. But back to Martins Ferry. They effectively, after Thursday night's loss, they don't control anything in regard to their future beyond Week 10. As it sits right now, if they win, they could be in or out. If they lose, they could be in or out. They don't control anything, so they certainly have to pick up a win to give themselves the best chance. And another interesting note about this game, From 1984 to 1986, Bel Air won 3 straight times. Final score in all of those games, 14-7. Same final score as the Ohio State-Texas game earlier in the season as well. But it doesn't get much better than Martins Ferry Bel Air. It doesn't get much better than Indian Creek Edison, Harrison Central, and Buckeye Local. And the first one that we talked about, Union Local and Barnesville. I want to take this moment to soak in the spectacle that is Rivalry Week in the state of Ohio. Nothing is better than Week 10. What is it? Canton McKinley and Massillon, Washington. They've got signs. I mean, they treat that thing like it's Ohio State, Michigan. They've got signs hanging off of buildings up there in northeastern Ohio. Obviously, northeastern Ohio, huge when it comes to football. Obviously, with there's a certain structure that exists within Canton. It's incredible. Steubenville has a big game this weekend as well. Now they're likely in. I mean, they are in the playoffs. But there are things to gain on either side. There are things to lose on either side between Steubenville and Wheeling Park. Also, I didn't give a pick for the Martins Ferry game. I think Martins Ferry gets the win. So to kind of backtrack here, I think all the favorites win this weekend that we've talked about, the 4 rivalry games that we've talked about. The 4 favorites, I believe, will win, and it just so happens to be that those are all the road teams as well. Just because I've put this out and I've said that I think this team will win and that team will win, obviously that means we're going to have an upset somewhere. So we'll be looking forward to that next week when we come back here on Hometown Huddle. When we get back to Ohio, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But Steubenville plays host to Wheeling Park on Friday night as well. I'll be keeping an eye on that game. It's always great. I love when they play basketball against each other. I've had to do the OVAC basketball championships numerous times, boys and girls. Steubenville and Wheeling Park, always just likewise with Morgantown, just a display of some of the best athletes in the OVAC, so that one will be great to watch as well. Let's talk a little bit about so last weekend. I don't really need notes for this. Hopefully, I can do it all from memory, but we'll see if we can accomplish that. So Thursday night, I was at Wheeling Central for the game between them and Martins Ferry. I was actually at Wheeling University for the game between Wheeling Central and Martins Ferry. Once again, great environment. Friday night, I was down the road at Harrison Central for their game against Edison. And then I don't even know if I got home by midnight that night. And then I slept for perhaps 5 hours. Woke up at 5 in the morning. I'm going to show you some B-roll here because it's just an incredible weekend. So those are 2 football games. And then woke up 5 in the morning on Saturday. And by 11 o'clock, we were in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And got to see the Big House for the first time. Got to see the Wolverines and the Huskies of Washington go at it on the field. Michigan got the win 24-7. We didn't stop there. By no means did we stop there. As soon as that game was in hand for Michigan, we left the Big House, drove southwest towards South Bend, Indiana, for the rivalry game between Notre Dame and USC. And I tell you what, I was able to, in person, see at least 90% of both of these games. Michigan and Washington, Notre Dame and USC, and that was an incredible experience as well. What a beautiful campus Notre Dame has. And I believe the bricks that their campus is built out of come from not far from here, up in Sugar Creek. I may be up that direction on Thursday night for big game between Indian Valley and Claymont. So then got back on Sunday, and we're looking to have another great weekend of high school football. So I said I'd be at Indian Valley and Claymont on Thursday night, but what's the Friday game? What's the radio game or the TV game? I'm afraid there is none, because the high school football game that I'll watch on Friday night, if any, will be in, what would it be? Southeastern Wyoming, because on Saturday, the game that I'll be attending is the battle for the bronze boot between Wyoming and Colorado State. So some more college football action as well. Do I feel as though I should be at a high school football game, an Ohio Valley high school football game on Friday night? Yes, I feel very upset that I'm not going to be able to. But there are not many opportunities to go to Wyoming and catch a rivalry game between the Cowboys and and Colorado State. Wyoming's head coach also Barnesville graduate, so that's a big deal as well. But that's a look at what kind of a run. And again, after this football season, we'll tally it all up. I'm already looking at how affordable it is to go to Canton and try to catch every single state championship game. But we've been on an incredible run. So had a football game Thursday night, high school game on Friday night, college football game at noon on Saturday, college football game at 7:30 on Saturday, and going to 2 college football games in one day. Okay, if it's Bowling Green and Toledo, all due respect to those schools, but it was Michigan and Notre Dame. So like that was something that I was proud to be able to pull off. Some haters out there said that it wasn't possible, but we showed them it was possible with footage that I showed you as well. And then Thursday night will be Indian Valley and Claymont, and then Friday night we've got to keep the streak alive, right? So I'm going to find a high school football game in either Laramie or Cheyenne, Wyoming. And then Saturday, it's going to be more college football action. And then we get right into the postseason. We've got West Virginia still playing ball. It's a great time to be around, especially here in the Ohio Valley. So I'd like to thank you for watching and listening this evening. That's all we've got for this October 22nd edition of Hometown Huddle. Remember, tomorrow night on the Harco Media Network, I don't mean to yell at you. Tomorrow night, Dirk Harkins, I Got Your Six premieres, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on the Harco Media Network, Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, anywhere you want to listen to or watch your content, you can access that. But for everybody at Harco Media Network, I'm Drake Watson saying thank you for watching and have an incredible evening.